Welcome everyone to Cisco Canada's Virtual Kitchen. We have a great show lined up today with McCain's or McCain. I say it right. McCain. Welcome, Chef Ron.
Yeah, you said it right. Thank you. Hi,
Awesome.
I'm Chef Ron with McCain Foods.
Awesome. Chef, we are celebrating Black History Month today with two amazing chefs, and I'm so honored to have this on our show and on our network today. And thank you again for putting this all together. And do you want to just share who we have on the call before we introduce them after a quick intro?
Sure. So today we have Chef Philman George with Highliner Foods Canada. And we also have Chef RJ Harvey with Potatoes USA. So we got some representation from North and South there.
Got it all covered. All
Right.
covered. That's awesome. Well, folks, we're going to be right back after this intro, and stay tuned. Awesome. Welcome back, everyone. And what, I'm just like floored today about the show and these two amazing chefs that we have into our show. And thanks again, RJ and Phil, to join us today.
Glad to be here.
That's awesome. So, Chef Ron, do you want to kind of start off today what we're going to be chatting about and how we're going to celebrate Black History Month?
Yeah, so we're gonna hear the chefs' backgrounds, hear about their how they got started in the business, talk about some of the struggles that they've had or hurdles they've come across in their careers, and just talk about some of their favorite dishes, and we're gonna see some pictures of some of the dishes they've prepared and some things they've done in the past.
Awesome. So we're going to kick over to Chef RJ to start us off.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. My name is Chef RJ Harvey. I'm the director of Culinary for Potatoes USA, and the whole point of Potatoes USA is to help drive the demand of U.S. potatoes. It's interesting. I've had a long and interesting culinary career. I have always wanted to be a chef, even when I was a young kid. I was interested in watching cooking shows and all sorts of things of that nature, instead of cartoons when I was growing up. So cooking was always really interesting to me. I ended up going to Johnson & Wales University right out of high school, and I was there for 4 years. I graduated with 2 degrees, one in culinary arts and one in culinary nutrition. And then just right out of culinary school, I decided I wanted to go and work in some of the top restaurants in the country. So I spent time at the French Laundry in Yountville, California. I spent time at Alinea in Chicago. Also spent some time at Restaurant Danielle in New York City. After I spent some time working at those restaurants, I decided I wanted to go and work on high-end guest ranches, resorts, hotels, that sort of thing. So I spent a few years doing that, and then ended up going to work on private yachts down in South Florida, which took me all over the world, which was fantastic. So I had the opportunity to spend time in the Caribbean, the Mediterranean. I lived in Italy, in La Spezia, Italy, for about 9 months, working on a new build out there. And then past that, came back stateside, worked on yachts for a couple more years, and ended up going to Jackson, Wyoming, where I ran a Chicago-style steakhouse in a boutique hotel called the White Buffalo Club. I was there for about 1.5 years before one of my chef mentors, Chef Kerry Neff, gave me a call and asked me to be a part of his research and development team for Morrison Healthcare, which is a division of Compass Group, one of the largest food service contractors in the world. And so I spent a better part of 10 years working with Compass in various roles, either in Morrison Healthcare, but also in Chartwell's K through 12. So I got to spend time on the healthcare side of things, the senior living side of things, as well as the K through 12 sector. And so in addition to that, after I left Chartwell's, I moved over to Potatoes USA as the global food service marketing manager. And so got the opportunity to travel even more, learning a lot more about the marketing side of the business. And past that, they decided to create the role of culinary director here at Potatoes USA. And I have been in this role now for about 2.5 years, going on 3. It'll be 3 years here at the beginning of July. And yeah, that's my story in a nutshell.
I was talking away and I didn't know my thing was muted. Sorry, Chef. I have so many questions for you. So first of all, what was your favorite show? What was your favorite cooking show growing up?
Ooh, so the one that I got to watch the most often, and the one that I was jazzed about was really, Martin Yan's show, Yan Can Cook. I was always
Okay,
pumped
yeah,
about that
yeah,
because he had a lot of energy. But I got to tell you, like,
he
one of the
did.
perks of staying home sick was getting to watch Great Chefs of the World, and it would only play at like 1 p.m. in the afternoon. So if you were at school, you didn't get to see it. But like, if I was at home sick, I was like, yeah, I get to stay home and watch Great Chefs of the World. Like, and it was like so fantastic because that's where you really got to see some cool dishes and some interesting culinary techniques. So it was really awesome.
It's amazing how much what we did as children in this space of cooking or enjoying food or those things that our parents taught us reflects into our lives, into our careers. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So you've been so in total, how many years have you been a chef then?
It's interesting. I don't know if there's ever really a defining moment where you consider yourself a chef. I mean, if I had to put a date on it, it would probably be my first executive chef role, which was that opportunity at the White Buffalo Club in Jackson. And so I
Nice.
took that role in 2007, 2008. And so if we went by that timeline, I'd say about 14 years now. But when you're a young chef, even though you have that executive chef title, you're always looking around to the more mature chefs, to the chefs who have more experience under their belt, and those to you are always chef. And so I don't think it's until you start having young mentees of yourself that start calling you chef that you really feel like you own that
Okay.
title.
I totally agree. Awesome stuff. So can you share with us maybe a little bit more, like you is this normal for chefs to bounce and jump from job to job? Like I think a lot of people look at that and go, there must be something wrong, but I hear this all the time. And that experience has got to be huge.
Yeah, it was. I always wanted to get a varied amount of experience, and the culinary industry is so vast. When I first started, I did prescribe to the idea of staying in one kitchen for at least a year, and going through the paces and learning as much as you could. But I just wanted to travel. I wanted to see, I wanted to learn from other chefs. And so the opportunity to get to different countries, to experience different cultures, and to work for different chefs and learn techniques of theirs. That's really what drew me to kind of bouncing around quite a bit as a young chef. It's fascinating. In the culinary industry, you can learn so much from one chef, but if you compound that by expanding your repertoire, it's huge. And especially if you go to different parts of the food service industry, right? I mean, fine dining, resorts, hotels, you learn big batch cooking, you learn how to do fine dining, you learn how to do intricate plating, but you also know how to do volume food service. And that has carried me a long way in the position that I am in now, because I know how to talk to a variety of different operators and really understand where they're coming from a business perspective. And so, if you pigeonhole yourself to one part of our industry,
Yeah.
then you really are limiting, the amount of knowledge that you bring to the table.
I more than you know what I heard it the other day, and someone said you're building your craft, right? And you continually add to it, and it's just outstanding. I love that journey. So do we want to have Chef Phil? First of all, I can't believe you didn't offer to rap and do a little tune for us, Chef. this morning?
Give it time. Warm me up here. I mean, please. Everybody like kind of
I'm a little
get a show
shocked.
right off the
I
top,
didn't get an
man.
email about that, buddy.
Calm down, settle down. We'll
Anyways.
get there. We'll get there.
Chef Ron, why don't you share a little bit about your journey? Chef Phil, sorry. Chef Ron, we can talk about your journey too, because it's incredible as well. But Chef Phil, share us a little bit about your journey, and then I got like a ton of questions here. Chef
Sure.
Ron set me up, but share a little bit about
Yeah. I'll try to take you through it
the
in
Philman
a
George
nutshell.
journey.
Yeah. Yes. Philman George. I am the corporate chef for Highliner Foods. 125-year-old seafood company, more than 125 years, and we're on a mission to reimagine seafood to nourish life. So, yeah, here I am. I've been doing this for a couple of decades now, and I started out humble beginnings. I think it was I was 16 years old, finally legal to work, and my first job was a dishwashing job at a local English style pub. And I was there to make money to pay for my sneaker habit. I love basketball, and my mother raised both my sister and I, single mother. Worked really hard, but didn't have the extras. So my Air Jordans were not going to be financed from my mother, right? So I went out and got a job and started washing dishes at a pub, and it started from there. Really looking at the line cooks and seeing their talent, and then migrating from being a dishwasher over to being a line cook in the English style pub. And I think every chef has a vivid memory of their first job. And I've got such vivid memories of the pub. I can close my eyes and take you through everything, like how the dining room looked, the servers, the interactions, everything in such detail. So yeah, I'll just park that there. And then, as I started to, once I finished high school, I didn't know what I wanted to be yet. I wasn't firm on my future. So I just took some time off from school and continued to work, right? And I'm working, going through the pub scene. And then I finally got a chance after a year to work in a white tablecloth restaurant, like a Mediterranean style restaurant in the suburb that I was living at the time. So I got to see for the first time, some real creativity, right? Whereas in the pub, you've got some stellar cooks, but they're responsible for like everything. Whereas in this environment, in the casual fine dining, you had one chef that was like dedicated to appetizers and desserts, another chef dedicated to the pans, another chef to entrees, and so on and so forth. So it was just a different structure. My eyes were open wide, and I did that for about a year. And the chef said, "Listen, Phil, you've got some talent. You should take this seriously and go to school for it." So I took that advice, enrolled in George Brown College, which at the time was one of the best culinary institutes in Canada. Probably still is. I might be a bit biased. And then from there, you're in school, you're learning a ton, right? You're learning the technical components, the food safety, all that stuff. I took culinary management. It was a 2-year course. And when I graduated, similar to Chef RJ, I just wanted to build my skills. And so I went into the industry. I had a learning attitude. It was like, I'm going to learn everything that I can at this restaurant. And once my learning curve kind of leveled off, it's time for me to move on, right? And go to another restaurant and try to check off all those technical skills that I was looking for, banquets, a la carte, different types of ethnic cuisine, and just keep going along the list. And as I was going through my journey, learning more, I realized that I wasn't being able to express myself fully in the kitchen environment. Like, I love hip hop. Hip hop to me, I grew up in that golden era of hip hop between like the late 80s and the late 90s. You had this era of hip hop that was really authentic. Like, to be a hip hop artist in those eras, to get signed by a label, you need to be authentic. You need to be real. You couldn't sound like anybody else, right? So I remember.
So the Super Bowl must have been amazing for
Super Bowl was just, looking at that and seeing some of those guys from the West Coast, right? And it was like, because you had your West Coast hip hop, then you had your East Coast hip hop, then you had your, Canada had its own flair of hip hop with Maestro Fresh West, Michi Me, Ghetto Concept, right? List goes on and on. So I'm a big hip hop head, and within the kitchens, I'm not being able to express that fully. So I created my own kind of business called The Rhyming Chef, which allowed me to incorporate hip hop and culinary arts together. And I think at the time, this is in the early 2000s, there was no, YouTube was in its infancy. There was no Facebook and IG and all these, and there was no cell phones to start recording. So to have a website at that young age meant that I took things seriously. I did the research, and I put myself out there, and that, the Rhyming Chef gave me that platform to kind of tap into some of the things that being a budding chef wasn't allowing me to do. So anyways, that was kind of how the Rhyming Chef started. And then I'm continuing on with my career. And I think some defining moments were, similar to Chef RJ, getting the training, right? Going and writing my journeyman's paper, being certified to cook around the country, leaving Canada to go explore Australia, taking my skills to Australia for a year, working over there. When I came back, I had a new perspective of what my value was to this industry in Canada, because they didn't want me to leave Australia. And I was getting paid really good over there. So coming back here, I just had a new kind of understanding of my work. Oh yeah, right, right.
The snow and the cold.
Right, yeah. Well, you know what? Australia did make me appreciate Canada a bit more, because when I was over there, when they see a puddle on the ground, they're like, "Wow, a puddle, mate!" Right? They were intrigued about snow. They're like, "You can go skiing, mate," and I'm like, "Skiing, right? Skiing? I'm inside all warm, right?" So when I came back to Canada, I took up skiing, I took up skating, I did all the things that I should be doing while I'm in Canada, right? So they made me appreciate it a little bit more. And I have a greater appreciation for fresh running water. We take that for granted here in North America, especially in Canada. We have so much of it. So yeah, great experience in Australia. Came back and really challenged myself to step it up and start getting, I was going for that executive chef position. Finally got it. Similar to Chef RJ, I found my niche in the private clubs. So private golf clubs, private yacht clubs. Thing I love about the private clubs, they make their money on the membership.
I was going to say, usually no food costs.
The kitchen, they just want you to break even. But me as a chef, I'm like, I'm not breaking even. I'm going to turn you a profit. So here I am starting to turn profits for these private clubs, and they were loving everything that I was bringing to the table. And I thought for sure that I would just continue on and become an executive chef of one of the best private clubs in Canada. And then, this job opening up comes up at Highliner, and I'm looking at the job description, and it combined everything that I was doing as an executive chef and as the Rhyming Chef. It combined all of those skills into one job where I could use my stage presence to captivate a crowd, and food photography that I was doing for the Rhyming Chef. I could do that for Highliner, and then my passion for seafood being from my Caribbean background. So it all kind of married into one job, and I applied for the position, and I started off in 2013 as a culinary manager for Highliner Foods on the food service side. And I started my family. I've got 2 young boys, both 8 and 5 years old now. And I took 2 parental leaves, and on return from my second parental leave, I got promoted to corporate chef. So I take care of the food service and the retail sides of the business. And I'm always empowered and encouraged to keep on providing innovative ideas to help promote that legacy of and that dream of being the number 1 value-added seafood company in North America. So it's just been an incredible journey, an incredible ride, and here I am. And that's that in a seashell, I guess, if I can describe 2 decades
that's in a seashell.
in a couple of in about 5 minutes. Yeah. So there it is.
Awesome. Chef Ron, do you any questions from you, Chef Ron? I don't want to take over. I got a ton of questions here. I could keep asking these.
Yeah, I mean,
amazing chefs.
We'll have a little bit of fun here. I mean, so I want to know what ingredients you chefs have in your home kitchens, and if there's something special that's from your childhood, things like that. And even that item that you have in your refrigerator, maybe it's that. I'll give you a quick little story on me. In my house, I use Miracle Whip salad dressing instead of mayonnaise because I grew up with that. And when I first tasted mayonnaise, I was like, I remember going to a relative's house. I was like, this sandwich doesn't taste. What is this? It's horrible, because I was never used to it. But I still use that at home along with mayonnaise. But little chef secret, a lot of chefs don't like to admit that they use Miracle Whip in their house. So,
who's got margarine? One of you have margarine, don't you? No.
I won't say no on that.
You know your chefs when you all said no. That was awesome. Awesome. I have a. So what is it? What's your secret item, Chef RJ?
So I'll go ahead and start. It's funny. I grew up Centennial, Colorado, but my mother's family is from Detroit and expands on past that to Mississippi as well as Arkansas. My dad's side of the family is from Ohio. And growing up in Eastern Colorado, there's not really a whole heck of a lot of diversity. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. Same with Philman. My mom didn't really cook much, so in our house we always had a lot of convenience type foods. And one thing that I remember from my childhood is Kraft American cheese slices. I mean, those things were things were like gold. And I still to this day, I mean, like, it's a taste memory. You put it on burgers, put it on grilled cheese. Like, there's just certain things you can't go with, like, I want to say like real cheese, right? Like you just have to have a Kraft American single on that bad boy, So that's always usually in my fridge somewhere.
That's a great memory. That little package, hey? And that package sometimes wouldn't open, and you'd just go nuts. Like, did you remember that? Yeah, you've been there. That's freaking. I love that. Chef Phil, what's your favorite?
Oh, a lot of similarities between Chef RJ and myself. So, my parents immigrated here before I was born. I'm from an island called Barbuda, sister island to Antigua, and I'll take you through my heritage a little bit as this show progresses. But I remember, similar to Chef RJ, sorry, I don't know if you mentioned this, but I know for my family, single household, right? My mother raised us on our own, so not a lot of time, and so the similarities are with the convenience products, right? Tons of, like, I've had my fair share of Kraft dinner. I've had my fair share of TV dinners. I don't know if you remember the TV dinners, where it was just the entire, everything was sectioned out. You had like your little brownie at the top and your main course and your vegetables, and you just stuck it in the microwave or you put it in the oven. I had that stuff, hamburger helper. Like, I mean,
hamburger helper, man.
Right? Like, it was a lot of survival food, really, right? And nothing crazy gourmet. But I do recall getting, like, on the weekends, my mother would do a traditional, like, Caribbean style brunch and a Caribbean style dinner, and we would come home from church and like the whole house was just smelling like flavors that I've never experienced before. And I was very fortunate that my mother made sure that we traveled back to Barbuda and spent some time. And while I was in the Caribbean, I discovered a pepper that has stayed with me to this day. As the minute I tasted it, I said, "What is this?" And I need to have this in Canada. So I brought them with me today.
No way.
They are called pimento peppers.
Okay.
In the Caribbean, we call them seasoning peppers, and I describe it as kind of like a Scotch bonnet without all the heat. So you get like that. It's got like a nice citrusy, smoky note to it. Yep. And we add this to everything that we're cooking. So I would say like a Caribbean mirepoix would be this with like onions and garlic, but this seasoning peppers have to be part of the mix. And thankfully, these are now available in Canada. But when I was growing up, these were precious. Like, you would bring them home, preserve them in your, from Barbuda, you'd carry them home and preserve them and try to grow them as well in the summertime. But now you can find them a little bit more easily. But that pepper, pimento pepper, that's my key ingredient. I keep it with me at all times.
He walks around with it. I love it.
Yeah, man. I got a little baggie with me.
Hey, I do want to, can I share mine? Like, it's by no means even remotely close to these these chefs. Mine was the pork chop. As soon as Dad would go down, and my dad was by no means a chef, he'd be like, "We're having pork chops tonight, son." And then you used to be going through your head and tears would come down your eyes because you're about to lose a tooth or your gums are going to bleed. And then the can of mushroom soup, right? And then you hear that going and be like, Dad's way of adding more moisture back into what he just sucked out of the pork chop on the frying pan, right? And then you would have it, and then there would be the buttered. I don't know if you had this, but this is maybe more British or whatever my background is. But it was buttered bread on the table, right? That you would dip into the mushroom soup and stuff like that, and the gum bleeding pork chops. But I tell you, today, I'll walk by a grocery store and I will see a pork chop and I will run away from it. And there's no way. We've never had it. But it is a great memory because I laugh all the time. But it was we're having pork chops and you just be like,
Oh no.
No. Because they were always like paper thin, right? The thin ones. And then he would fry them in a frying pan. I can hear it and the smell. And then the after, just thought, oh no, right? And that and onions for some weird reason. He thought, yeah, I'll just throw onions in there too. So it was always onions, that, and mushroom soup. So that was my. It's not my staple today, but that was my memory. But anyways, there's enough about me. So let's cut to a quick commercial. We're gonna take a quick commercial, but I want to bring back to these chefs and really talk about the celebrating Black History Month, what it means to be a Black chef in this industry today, and any challenges you guys have come across through your careers. I'm sure there's some stories and things like that, unfortunately, but I want to be able to share some of those inspiration moments that other kids that are young and stuff like that are looking to get into this industry, that needs to have people like yourselves to lead and to show the world that no matter what race you are, where you're from, and things like that, that you can be a chef and to have an amazing career like you both have. And I tell you, we need more people like you, more people like you to lead this way for us. So Let's get back to that. Is that cool, Ron?
Sounds good.
We'll get deep in emotion. Just don't make me cry, or I'll talk about that pork chop again. And we'll be back, folks, right after this quick little bit.
Cisco is Canada's leading restaurant supplier, with more than 14 locations across the country, servicing every province and territory. We are grateful for our partnerships and proud to service our customers from St. John's, Newfoundland to Victoria, BC. With the most distribution sites in Canada, we are recognized for our national reach and local connection. Cisco services every community size, from every major city to every small town. We are relentlessly innovating to ensure you have the products and services you need, no matter your location, with a coverage area that's continuously expanding. A partnership with Cisco guarantees access to the industry's best distribution network, keeping you on trend and stocked with fresh products and fresh ideas. Cisco Canada provides a broad range of food and non-food products to both independent and chain restaurant customers and other away-from-home locations, such as healthcare and educational facilities. No matter your cuisine type or culinary capabilities, we can help. Our products are sourced locally in Canada and within our specialized global network of responsible suppliers. Our categories include meat and poultry, seafood, dairy, produce, bakery and desserts, food service supplies, beverages, specialty and world food products, and pantry staples. Locally focused, our regional teams provide the hands-on customer service that sets us apart, ensuring you have what you need when you need it. Visit cisco.ca to learn more.
Awesome. Welcome back, everyone, to Cisco's Virtual Kitchen, the McCain Show with Chef Ron and these two amazing chefs that we have on the show today, Chef Phil and Chef RJ. So, gentlemen, I'm going to change this background song because it's driving me crazy. I don't know whoever comes up with these musics for these things, but don't call one Feeding the Duck. That's when this song right now is called Feeding the Ducks, just if you'd like to purchase it later on. No. But anyways, Chef Ron, please jump in there. I don't want to take the floor too much today, but I want to ask these gentlemen just really, what does Black History Month mean, celebrating it, and what it means to be a chef? Who wants to grab that first? RJ?
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and jump in. Sure.
Okay, there you go.
I'll jump in. So it means so much, and it's one of those things where we should really be celebrating Black history all 12 months of the year, but we do get the opportunity to really embrace it and have the discussion every February. as a black chef, it was one of those things growing up and being so intrigued with culinary culture in the food service industry. There just simply weren't any black chefs that I could assimilate with, right? There were no black role models, black chef mentors that I saw on television or on cooking shows. Even chefs that I saw in restaurants as I went to different ones as a kid or even as a young cook working in these places, the leaders, the commanders of these kitchens were not black chefs. And so when you start trying to figure out your way and ask yourself the question, what is the potential and what are the possibilities of me making it to that level when you just aren't exposed to any leaders in the industry that are the same culture or heritage as you start to question yourself on a regular basis. And that's why representation is so important. But, when you look at black culture, black history in general, there is a vivaciousness, a tenacity there. A hard work ethic, a ability to show up, get things done. And I think that draw and that understanding of perseverance really helped me create a solid foundation for myself within the culinary industry. Around that time, when I started to develop more skills and get more confident in myself in the kitchen, that's when you start to see more chefs come on the scene in strong leadership roles. I remember Marcus Samuelson, when I was in, probably my third or fourth year of culinary school, really becoming a huge name in the celebrity chef world. My sister actually got me the opportunity to have an interview with him and chit chat with him and just kind of understand his path of progression. And so that was something that was really, really a huge and impactful moment for me. Also starting to see chefs like Govind Armstrong really make it on the scene and kind of put their stamp on American cuisine as a whole was really impactful. It's one of those things where when you start to see more proliferant chefs that are of the same culture and heritage as you start to embrace it that much more. And I think at that stage, you start to look at the questions of what are some indigenous cuisines of my culture? And in America, it's really kind of a sad story, right? Because when slaves were brought over to the U.S., their culture, their heritage, their names, everything was wiped away from them. And so not really being able to understand what are those indigenous ingredients, what is that indigenous culture like? What are those indigenous foods like? All you're regulated to in this country and in America as a black chef is kind of that Southern soul food, right? And so as you're developing your style and you're working in different kitchens and you're being exposed to all these different types of cuisines, you intrinsically don't want to fall back on that Southern soul food as being your core cuisine, right? Because especially when you are passionate about nutrition, such as I am, you want to try and disassociate yourself with some of those highly caloric, highly perceived unhealthful foods. And it's not until in the last decade or so that we've come to understand that Southern cuisine in this country is extremely diverse. It's probably some of the most diverse cuisine that we have in American culture, and it goes way beyond just throwing something in a fryer. It's very diverse from an agricultural standpoint. It's very diverse from a cultural standpoint. It's influenced by lots of different folks from all over the world. But the West African influence on Southern American cuisine really is a huge piece of it. And so as I've matured as a chef, I've taken pieces of that. I've learned to embrace parts of my culture and my cuisine and incorporate it with the foods that I enjoy cooking as well. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Southeast Asian flavors. I love the cuisines of Asia, South Korea, Japan, Chinese, Vietnamese. And there's a lot of similarities there between the indigenous cuisines of the American South and also that of West Africa. And so a lot of my style of cuisine is built upon that, but I'm also classically European trained from French chefs, from Italian chefs, and from Anglo-Saxon chefs here in the U.S. So I think, once we start understanding that this melting pot of America has formed a really interesting type of cuisine, that's really kind of defined myself as a young Black chef. But again, I think I go back to how representation is so important. And my mentor, I mentioned earlier, Chef Carrie Neff, being a vice president of culinary for Morrison Healthcare for, the better part of 2 decades, it just gave me inspiration to learn from somebody like that, a leader in the culinary industry, and having him really kind of coach me through has developed not only my food style, but it's also developed my presentation style, how I show up and get up to work every single day, how I interact with others, my speech, etc. It's all been built upon that. So I think folks like myself, Chef Philman, we have a responsibility to younger chefs to mentor them, pay it forward, and showcase that they can make it in this industry.
You absolutely do. There's one thing I just want to ask you, Chef RJ, before we go over to Phil, is when you were talking about like the heritage and stuff like that of the cuisine from way back in the day. Do you find a lot of, like, today we are, maybe in the last 10 years, let me rephrase that. In the last 10 years, we're about sustainability, we're about agriculture practices. And then when we look back hundreds and hundreds of years ago, a lot of these different cultures were already doing these practices. And it kind of, we have the same thing in Canada with our indigenous culture up here, and their cuisine. It's sustainable, it's healthy, it's it's got all these notes that we're looking at today, and the relationship. But do you see that also, like some of the things that you're talking about way back in the day, in relationship to what today, that I don't want to say is a trend, but it's where we're realizing that we have to go? And it's like, hey, we were doing this 300-400 years ago. All right, you guys are doing here, right? Do you see that as well?
I do, absolutely. And it's a huge part of the way that I cook too. It's a resurgence of things like pickling and fermenting and all of these terms that are really trendy on restaurant menus now. I mean, these have been ways that cultures all over the world have fed themselves for centuries. And it's interesting to talk about all of the health benefits of these different types of ways of enjoying foods, how it's good for microbiome in your gut, how it helps you digest food better, how you can help with nutrient absorption by having more fermented foods and so forth. And so it just kind of comes full cycle. But it is absolutely fascinating how we revert back to a time, what I like to call the processed decades, where we were eating everything that was highly processed. It had a lot of different chemicals and so forth. And now we're starting to see people move towards more natural, more holistic ways of eating. And it's no longer just food is healthy because it's low in calories or it's low in fat or any of that, right? It's because it's more natural. We're doing less to it. And we're just treating solid, wholesome foods in an appropriate manner and eating real food. Like I think that's what a lot of people are trying to get back to. And I for one I'm here for it. So
my one chef used to always say to me, because this is a while ago, when organic was coming in, he's always used to say to me, Jay, 100 years ago everything was organic already. Right? Like it's not new. Right?
Exactly.
So so Chef Phil, do you want to share a little bit about your journey as a Black chef?
Yeah, no problem. I'd love to. For me, Black history is a chance for me to share my history with other Canadians, and it's a chance for me to learn about other Black Canadians' history in Canada and what we bring to this nation. I look at when I was growing up, a lot of people, and I was growing up in the inner city. I was born in Scarborough and then moved to Toronto, just outside of Regent Park. And so I went to school in Regent Park, and everybody assumed I was Jamaican, right? And if I was Jamaican, I'd be proud of that, right? I love Jamaican heritage and culture, but I am Barbudan. And I think every Black Canadian here has come from somewhere that tells a story. And we have a huge Haitian population. We have an amazing Nigerian, Ghana. Like there's so many different cultures to Canada, and made Canada something that they can call home. I'm glad you got this image up here. This is Barbuda, which is the sister island to Antigua. And when I tell people I'm from Barbuda, they say, "Oh yeah, I've been to Bermuda." Like, no, I said Barbuda. Right? Oh no, I've been to Barbados. No. I said I'm from Barbuda. Right? And so, we are the forgotten island, like many sister islands. You go to Trinidad and you might forget about Tobago. You go to St. Kitts and you discover that there's Nevis, right? And you go to Antigua and you'll discover Barbuda. And Barbuda has a special history in terms of Black history, and you would probably only hear about it if you studied Caribbean history or a Barbudan. And both my parents being from Barbuda, I have a really good understanding of what Barbuda means to Black history. So I'll give you a little history on Barbuda from pre-emancipation to post. So pre-emancipation, during the times of slavery, Barbuda was not your typical plantation growing island, right? The geography, climate, and the soil conditions weren't the greatest for growing the cash crop, which was sugarcane. However, in Antigua, great growing conditions for that type of crop. So Barbudans were enslaved by the Codrington family, who leased the land in Barbuda and in Antigua, and they also had a plantation in Barbados. Barbuda was used as a place to grow provisions, ground nuts, yams, fruits, vegetables, and those were used to nourish the workers in the fields in neighboring islands. So that was pre-emancipation. Now, post-emancipation, Barbuda, now here's the irony of slavery, right? Where it's like the enslavers were given credits for all of their enslaved workers. So once slavery was abolished, they looked at it like, well, you just lost your personal property. We'll give you credits, right? We'll give you a shilling, whatever it was in those times, for every worker. But Barbuda was not one of the islands that was considered an island that needed to be emancipated. So what Codrington did was he tried to get Barbudans to come over to Antigua so that they can be counted as workers and he can get his credits. Barbudans refused. And keep it in mind that there's no internet, there's no telegraph. How would Barbudans even know that slavery was over? So you can imagine the amount of trickery that was used, but Barbudans still refused to go over to Antigua. So Codrington left and just said, all right, I give up, I'm out. And since that day, Barbudans have been governing themselves on the island ever since. And we have created a communal land ownership system, which is very significant because it is one of the communal land ownership is nothing new. But that communal land ownership system for an entire island is extremely, extremely unique and something that we should be celebrating, because every single Barbudan is guaranteed a piece of land. As long as you can prove your family tree and you can prove that you're a Barbudan, you are entitled to a piece of land. I'm just going to read you a little excerpt out of this book called Dreamland Barbuda. I'll show you the link. I'll show you the link. You can find it on Amazon. But I'm going to show you a little blurb here to give you a little history of Barbuda. In Barbuda, historically, every Barbudan has been entitled to a piece of land at no expense, enshrined in law as a result of the Barbuda Land Act in 2007. This act of parliament also provides that all land in Barbuda is owned in common by Barbudans. This suggests that perhaps they are the wealthiest people in the world in the context of a capitalistic system where land and property are a system of wealth and prosperity. So for free land for Barbudans is one of the island's unique features, along with its secluded natural beaches and its large areas of wilderness. The development of communal land ownership on the island was not an easy achievement. In fact, Barbudan people have been fighting for it for over 200 years. Wow. So when, understanding who I am, knowing that both of my parents are from Barbuda, if you go up to the previous slide, you'll see a picture of my parents. So when I think about Black history, I think about my parents, I think about my ancestors and what they fought for, so that I can have the privileges to know that I'm from a place that is of extreme beauty, and I have rights to the land. I mean, that is just an incredible to have that feeling, to know that you're from a place like that is pretty special. And there is a significant Barbudan population here in Canada. In Toronto, we have a population in Miami, you have a population in the UK and in the Bronx. That's where we've migrated to. But every Barbudan has a special connection with the land and the ocean. And no matter where we are in the diaspora, we are all gravitated towards back to Barbuda. So, you're seeing images on the screen, and maybe I'll just ask you to go up to some of the images that were passed, and I'll take you through some of my history of Barbuda. So top left, that's a picture of Princess Diana, and that's a picture of my father in Barbuda. And you can imagine, I'm sparing you the pictures of looking at beaches and pristine stuff. I'll just say Princess Diana in her time could go anywhere in the Commonwealth, and Barbuda was her favorite spot on the planet. So that'll give you an idea of just not only the natural beauty, but also the people. She loved the people, and I think she appreciated not being treated like a royalty, just treated like a regular person. And you can see how her sons have kind of gravitated towards that mentality, and some of her sons have kind of left the monarchy. So you can see that influence that Princess Diana and Barbuda, they're intertwined. I just want to give you that photo. So anybody asking about Barbuda, I just show them that photo. I'm like, yeah, it's paradise, right?
Yeah,
and then you look at these images. So that's my son holding up a land turtle. When I talk about Barbuda and that connection to the land, it's just unspoiled wilderness. It's not as developed as Antigua. It's just the right amount of development for the people on the island. We're only about 1,000, 1,500 people. So we don't need massive tourist development. And we continue to practice our culture, which is living off the land and taking care of our oceans and making sure that those two things can provide nutrients for us. That's a picture of my son riding a donkey. So every Barbudan will have an experience of riding a donkey. You'll be sitting out on your porch and you'll watch a bunch of donkeys run one way and then a bunch of kids running after the donkeys. And then all of a sudden you'll see a bunch of kids riding back on donkeys, right? So wow. It's an experience that every Barbudan will have, and that's an experience that I was able to afford for both of my sons. And
Chef, I have a question for you. The people must live longer on this island. Is that right? This is beautiful, man.
I'll give you a story. So when I get to Barbuda and I start walking, people are literally stopping me saying, what's the matter? Where's the fire? What is going on? Right? So I cannot have that same pace that I have in Toronto. When I get to Barbuda, it's a different pace. You really have to slow down and be in tune with nature, right? So people will definitely live less. It's just carefree. Your childhood is extended. You don't have to worry about your children staying out late and getting into, everything's just extended. So, yeah. And then the top right, you'll see my son's a little picture of my son in a field behind him. Mm-hmm. That's us working the fields after Hurricane Irma hit. And we're replanting a community garden. And that image was so special to me because in the background is my father and my mother working those same fields. So my sons got to work with their grandparents and water some plants that were going in the ground and get that connection with the soil in Barbuda. So a very special moment for me that happened just before the pandemic. And then those birds that you see in the image with the red chest, those are called the majestic frigate bird. We have the largest population on the planet in Barbuda. They live in the mangroves. And they have a wingspan of about 6 feet. The bird is with that wingspan, they need to be elevated in order to fly. If one bird falls down on the ground, it can't lift itself up. What it'll do is it'll spread its wings out, and 2 other birds will come by with their beaks and try to lift the bird up to make it fly again. Also, that bird, before the advent of weather systems and meteorology, for our ancestors to predict a storm coming, they would watch these birds, and as these birds sensed the storm, they would leave the nest and fly really high up in the sky, and that told my ancestors to get ready for a storm. So it's that connection with all of the animals on the land. So chances are if you meet a Barbudan, they're going to have, wherever they are, they're going to have some type of connection between land and ocean. So that's the kind of the lifestyle of Barbuda. If you go to the next slide, this is the food. So, so much to talk about here. So in terms of seafood and my love for seafood, it stems from Barbudans we are a fishing community, but when I say there's a lack of, I guess you couldn't go to a seafood market in Barbuda. You have to know the fishermen or the fishers to get seafood, right? And I said fishermen, I corrected myself because the women also fish on the island. You'll see lots of husband and wife teams going out. So I call my uncle and say, hey, I need some fish. He'll say, all right, meet me at the dock. He usually goes out in the night, sets his lines or sets his nets, and then hauls it in the morning. So I will come to the dock, and if I get there at 5 o'clock, I'm too late. I have to be there at like 4:30. When he pulls in before the sun's up, I sort out my fish, and then I clean it up, take it home, and do a fish fry. And that's like and we keep our fish whole. We don't debone it. It's funny because working for a seafood company like Highliner, we do a lot of processing where the bones got to be out, the skin's got to be out. But for me, our culture, the skin has to stay on, the bones have to stay in. This is where all the flavor is, right? So I grew up appreciating a lot of fish in its purest form. And then also my perception of what fresh fish is it stems from my Black history, right? So for me to call my uncle to get the catch that comes in, that's fresh fish. Anything other than that is not fresh. So so now that I've working with Highliner and understand how to preserve freshness, it's opened up my mind to a whole bunch of other opportunities and possibilities. Top right, you're seeing what we do is our dumplings, our roasted dumplings. Everything is cooked outside on what we call a yaba pot. This is a clay pot, and we use charcoal as the heating source. The amount of technique that is used here is very simple, and every culture in the world probably has a recipe where you're just using flour, water, 2 simple ingredients, and you can make something fantastic. But it's the method of cooking and the control of heat transfer that always amazes me when I see this process done by like an elder or in the village. And so we would do like a traditional Sunday or a Saturday morning breakfast will be somebody on the road doing a local fry up, like fish and dumplings. And that is like a beautiful, simple but delicious Saturday morning treat. And then land crab is local to the island. So we'll, during land crab migration season, we'll be cooking up land crabs. Obviously lots of fruits and vegetables on the island. That's me cutting some plantain that's growing wild. Spiny lobster. We don't have the main lobster here with the claws. Our lobster's just got the spiny points as their defense system. No need for the
what
claws.
are they called, Chef? What do you call them? They call them
spiny lobster.
Lobsters.
Yeah. So if you can kind of see the spine, like they're like little spikes that stick out, and that's their defense. Whereas the main lobsters, their defense is the claw. Come too close, and I'll claw you. You try to eat a spiny lobster, any predator sinks their teeth into that. You're just getting a fistful of porcupine needles, right? So it's like, so that's how they do it. That's how they defend themselves. But the water is a little bit warmer, so they don't have as much fat, a little bit leaner. So you have to just be careful how you prepare it. And that's my father's beach bar where he did his specialty. And the top in the middle there, that red dish with the orange, the yellow, that is kind of colorblind a bit. That is what we call fungi, and it is a local dish where you're taking cornmeal and it's almost like making polenta, but it's a lot thicker and a lot stiffer. And we would combine things like okra. Sometimes you do it with pigeon peas. And this is a dish that anybody from Barbuda will recognize and has an affiliation with. Because no matter how poor you were, you would still be able to have fungi, because we would grow our own corn on the island and then mill it ourselves and then turn it into this creation here that you're seeing. And around it is stewed lobster, and you're supposed to eat this with your finger, with your hands. So you just kind of pull a little bit of the fungi apart, dip it into the sauce and into your mouth, and that is a delicacy on the island. So I just wanted to share that with you. So
beautiful.
So this is what Black history means to me. It's being able to share parts of my culture with other Canadians, and then to learn about other Canadians brought to Canada, because you know, as I look back at what was taught to me about Black history in school, it was much from a U.S. standpoint. We learned about the slave trade. We learned about the Underground Railroad into Canada. And so there was this perception that Canada never had slaves, like Canada was always this place of freedom, but that's not true. And we're starting to uncover that and learn more about that now. We're starting to learn about Canada's dark secrets and ugly past that we need to come to terms with. And I think being a chef, given these platforms, Black History Month gives me that opportunity to kind of make people aware of that. So yeah, that's what it means to me.
First of all, wow, chef, it's just incredible. I always love hearing your story of the past and the culture and how you bring that into what you do today. I think that's just brilliant. I'm floored by that. But I want to go over to Chef RJ for a second, because we got some amazing pictures of your masterpieces, as we call the culinary side. And I do want to bring those up quick here. If that's okay, Ron. I don't want to.
Oh, no, please.
Jay, you can say that anytime. It's allowed. But we're going to go over to Chef RJ here. Let me just see if I can pull that up. Here we go. Boom. I think it works. There we go.
Yeah.
So RJ, you got to tell us these things here. First of all, I don't know how you get that color in number 2, the second picture there, but that is absolutely gorgeous.
Sure. So, similar to what Philman was talking about, embracing those cultural flavors, I do the same thing in my style of food. I'm a very produce-driven chef. I always try to lead with different types of great pieces of produce. That first image is some hamachi that is then paired with a very traditional Southern American dish where you take buttermilk and pour it over top of cornbread. So here we have a green onion infused buttermilk with hamachi, a little bit of chili oil, which is that influence from Southeast Asia. And then, of course, we've got some great cornbread there that we've torn into croutons. The next one are some truffle deviled potatoes. So playing
wait, Chef, you made it's cornbread into croutons?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You just tear cornbread into little tiny pieces. And
that's what those little yellow parts are around there? That is beautiful, man.
Thank you.
It's brilliant.
The next one we have is truffle deviled potatoes. So playing off of the deviled eggs, but we're using all plant forward. So truffled mashed potatoes inside of little potato cups. We've garnished it with some olive oil caviar, a little bit of watermelon radish, black sesame seeds, and it eats nice. It's very light and refreshing.
Love it.
What I talked about earlier about influencing those flavors from Southeast Asia and Asia and how they mimic a lot of American Southern food. We've got classic chicken and waffles, right? But what we've done is we've brined the chicken in some kimchi. Then we've gone through and fried it just like Korean fried chicken, serving it alongside some potato waffles where we've taken mashed potato and making waffles out of it.
Wait. Can you explain that, Chef? Sorry, I'm
Absolutely.
interrupting, Ron, but I have to ask you, the passion of the food's coming out on me. How the heck did you make potato waffles? Those are incredible, Chef.
So we use mashed potatoes as the base, and what we're able to do is fold in some flour, a little bit of egg, and go through and make the process of making a waffle batter. The mashed potato inside the batter helps retain moisture. It makes it a little bit more luscious to eat. It promotes that golden brown color. And so we just utilize mashed potatoes as part of that batter mixture.
Do you still put a little flour in there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You put a little bit of flour, but it doesn't have to be wheat flour. If you want to keep these gluten-free, you can go ahead and use in any other type of flour, rice flour, potato flour, etc.
Brilliant.
And again, the balancing those flavors, we take in gochujang and stewed those with collard greens. We've taken a little bit of kimchi and folded those into some creamy mac and cheese. Right? Pickled vegetables, those are a very Southern thing to do, but they also do that all throughout Asia. So, and then lastly, we've got a Marion berry and cherry galette, where I like to take grits, which is a very Southern American dish, and we use that in the cornmeal crust for this dessert. A galette's just a free-form pie, so this is a very Southern type of dish using fresh fruit. But then I like to spin it a little bit, and of course I introduce some Asian flavors by pairing it with some yuzu curd as opposed to a lemon curd. So Yuzu is a little bit more floral. It brightens up all the berries, makes it really nice and lovely and inviting. And so those are just styles of my types of cuisine where I like to take different influences from all over the world and incorporate it into some traditional Southern American flair.
Wow. I'm blown away. I like just incredible ideas. I just love those potato waffles too. I think McCain's, you may don't steal that idea either, Ron.
Oh no, I won't steal that idea.
I have absolutely no problem with any of our wonderful potato processors stealing that idea so we can get more potatoes in front of more people in more ways.
It's brilliant. I love it. I love it. I love it.
It just goes to show the versatility of potatoes. That's the amazing thing here. I mean, it really is. I always tell people it's a blank canvas. You can do anything with potatoes that you want. Substitute it into dishes, like with the waffles. I mean, we've done those in the past ourselves. Like when I was working in the hotel industry, we would come up with those things for dinner specials. Like you said, with the chicken, or maybe it was with a piece of fish. But there's so much you can do with potatoes, and just can't say enough about them.
So, Chef RJ, can you share? We got some more here, and I want to make sure we go through some of these because they're just beautiful, beautiful dishes.
I did a catering over the weekend for Valentine's Day for a few lucky folks. I auction off tasting menu dinners from time to time. And this is just a few of the courses here. So we start off with a little beet tartare taco. So this is a Parmesan crust shell that we've just basically shaven Parmesan onto a nonstick pan. And we're able to then form it into a taco shell. We've piped it with some goat cheese that has some capers and some shallots, all those things you would associate with beef tartare, but instead we're using beets. And then we do a little citrus marinated fine dice of beets on top of that. This whole meal was based around perfect pairings. So you've got beets and goat cheese. The next dish is chocolate and caramel. So that's a chocolate and caramel hazelnut tart. The next one is peas and carrots. So we have a Vadavan spiced carrot bisque paired with a mint pea salad. Carrot chips, as well as a little bit of Greek yogurt. So it's all those plays on Indian flavors. The next one is very classic steak and potatoes, right? But we've sous vide cooked some chili rub smoked ribeye and served it with a crispy potato pave, which is very, very thin layers of potatoes that have been cooked in duck fat and then crisped up again afterwards. We've shaved asparagus into noodles and paired that with a little béarnaise sauce. The dish underneath that is buttermilk and cornbread. So again, a nod to that dish you saw earlier. But this one is with a little bit of cured sake cure, serving inside of a wasabi buttermilk with some salmon roe. We've got mushrooms and onions. So that's a mushroom terrine with some caramelized onions, a little bit of fresh house-made ricotta, and some preserved Meyer lemon. And then the last one is lobster and truffles. So we've got a green onion infused risotto that then has some white truffle whipped in, butter poached lobster, Parmesan frico, and some pickled radish on top to kind of contrast all the richness of that dish.
Beautiful, Chef. Just outstanding.
Gorgeous,
aren't they? Like pieces of art. Just beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful. Awesome. Well, Chef Ron, I'm gonna, is there any questions from your side, Ron, that you'd like to ask the chefs before we wrap up here?
I just don't know how I can follow something like this. I mean, the stories, the background, the history that you guys have, and how you it's really, and I find this fascinating, is how we take a lot of that fine dining experience that we have. I had some fine dining experience as well. And coming into the manufacturing side of the world, and it's a different world, but we're able to take this and take things to the next level for the companies that we're with. And it's amazing to see that, what both of you have done.
Yeah, I love the overlap, like how you guys are bringing that in and sharing that.
Right.
In companies that you're working for, has got to be like, this is incredible, because you're bringing that. And I think that's what makes a lot of these companies that we work with, like Cisco and like McCain's and like the US, Potato USA and Highliner, is that we're bringing real people and real culinary into a place where a lot of people don't think that's the case. And I love that. I think it's huge. I think it's building your brand up. It's making you more lovable and likable. And huge fans of what you guys are doing out there, and I just applaud that. So that's, I mean, you're absolutely right, Ron. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think we're going to wrap up here. I just, first of all, thanks again for sharing your story, both of you chefs, on what really, celebrating Black History Month. And I love that there was some things there that we should celebrate it every month. And I think that's also something that I agree with immensely, that building this into the culture of what we have today is so important. And you guys are leading the way. So I just thank you again for being on the show, sharing your stories, sharing your beautiful recipes. Sorry, I had to share my pork chop story, but I had to get it in there after 300 some shows. I got to get that story in there somewhere. But thanks again for being on the show today, Chef Ron. Thanks again for putting this all together. And what you guys are doing over at McCain's is so special to me and to our shows as well. So thank you, all of you, for being on the show today.
Well, and
Thanks
thank you
again.
all too for creating this platform. I think this is huge to have companies such as Cisco and McCain to help support this message and get people excited about Black history, Black culture, and Black heritage.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
Chef Phil, we're going to get you to do a song one day. I'll get you back.
Bring it on, man. And make sure you've got a DJ, right? Don't just be like, oh yeah, go. Like, I'm not a spoken word. I'm not dropping some spoken word here.
There you go.
Hook me up. Make sure I got 2 turntables. I'll take care of the mic.
There you go. We'll bring
That's
it back.
better, right? Yeah.
Is that better?
Give me something. Well, that's not better, but like it's at least a step forward, right?
I love you guys. That's awesome. Well, thank you again. And to everyone else, tune in to SVK. We are the only food service streaming live media network channel in the industry, bringing you amazing shows like today's McCain Show. No ass, by the way. But thanks again, Ron, and everyone else over at McCain's. We love you. And chefs, have a great rest of your week. Tune in tomorrow. We're back again at 11 a.m. Eastern time on the SVK network. And have a great rest of your week and day, and enjoy it, and get out there and enjoy some food as well.
Thank you, chefs.
Sounds
See you later.
good. Thanks so much.